friends. Today we are going to be moving into a new math unit. We are going to be learning data analysis. So our learning objective today, that's our I can statement, is I can represent data on a frequency table. Okay, so today we're going to do just that. So we're going to start out today with some vocabulary, and what we're going to do is we're going to identify important vocabulary sort of as needed. So our first vocabulary word is, you guessed it, data. Okay, and data simply means information, and more specifically, when we're discussing data analysis, data is the information that is collected and then analyzed. So you might be thinking now, well, exactly how is this information or data collected, and what does it mean to analyze? That's a toughie. Let's talk about it. The first thing we've got to do in order to collect data is begin with a question, okay? And not one question for one person, but the same question for many people. This is also called a survey. So last week, the fourth grade teachers asked their students a question. What is your favorite color? And we received many responses. So here are just a few examples. In Miss Salinas' class, Max picked blue and Gabby chose yellow. In Miss Fuentes' class, Leon responded with red as his favorite color, and Amira said pink. In Miss Tidwell's class, Jose picked purple as his favorite color, and Isabella really likes black. And finally, in Miss Trevino's class, Mia chose green as her favorite color. Awesome, Mia, that's mine too. And Raul chose blue as his favorite color. But oh my gosh, friends, we had so many responses, and I still have to go through all of them. So here, let me just plot those down for you. So here's our question, and here are all of the responses. Wow, look at all that data. But you know what? It's kind of a big mess right now. So you see, when you go through the process of collecting data, you have to find a way to organize that information. Because if you ask some questions to try and get some information from the data we collected, like which color was the grade level favorite, or how many people chose blue instead of red, you wouldn't be able to answer that because you can't see that through this mess. So this brings us to our next vocabulary phrase. Frequency table. A frequency table is just one way that we organize data that we collect to show or represent the number of times that something happens, the number of times it occurs, how frequently does it happen. Okay, so I know that in third grade you used frequency tables, but we're just going to review really quickly. A frequency table helps us to organize, okay, but it also allows us to find any patterns that might exist, and it helps us to solve problems. Now remember that question from earlier, what does it mean to analyze? Well, when you're looking for patterns and relationships and solving problems from a set of data, that is called analyzing. And if we notice on our frequency table, we have things like the categories listed, we see tally marks used, and we also notice actual numbers represented. So let's see how that all ties together. So we have asked the question and collected all this information, but now as we see, step 2 says organize. So we're going to use a frequency table to organize our data. So here's our raw data, this mess of responses. And now I'm going to take all these responses and I'm going to create a frequency table. Looks like that. Frequency table has a title. The question we asked was, what's your favorite color? So the title of our table that tells us the answers is students' favorite colors. And we also have here our columns that are labeled. So we see here that our first column is going to tell us what color was responded to. The second column tells us is where we're going to put our tallies. And the third column is that number that we're going to use to represent how many times did someone choose this color. So now that our frequency table is created, I'm going to go through all of the responses. And as a new color is chosen, I'm going to add it to the chart and give it a tally mark. So as I go through, I'm going to see that the first color was chosen was blue. So I'm going to put a tally mark right here. Then I'm going to just keep going. And yellow was chosen, so I got to give it a tally mark. Oh, but blue was chosen again. So I'm going to put it here. Oh, here's another one for blue. Wow, okay. Oh, here's a new color, red. All right. So, oh, but look, I have a fifth person. And remember, when we're doing tally marks, we make bundles of 5. Oh, green finally made it on the board. All right, boys and girls. So we have all of our tallies marked. I went one response after another, and these are the tally marks that we came up with. And so now what you do is you count through to see how many. Oops, I missed one. Here's still another one. Red, you got one more. All right. And so here what we see is, oh, I'm sorry, I missed one more. Pink, you have a third tally. There we go. Now we're all up to date. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and we're going to count up our tallies and we're going to put in our numbers. So blue, we have 13 because if I just simply count up my bundles, I see I have 5, 10, and then count by ones, 11, 12, 13. So for yellow, we've got 3. Red, we had 9 responses. For pink, there was 3. Purple got 2 responses. Black got 9. And green got 10. So now our frequency table is complete, and we can start to really think about what our table is telling us. What information is it giving us? We can start to answer some of those questions. Now, before we do that analyzing that we talked about, I just want to show you that frequency tables can look a little bit different even with all of the same information. So I want to show you a couple of those examples. So for example, here we have a student's favorite color still, right? But here, if you can see, we have only 2 columns. We have the color, the category is still there, but we just jump right to frequency. And in a table like this, we just give the number to show the frequency. And then yet another table over here, it's showing us again the category. So that kind of stays consistent. You're always going to have the category, right? The responses, you have to know what the response was. But instead of giving us the number, they only give us the tallies. So it's important when you have a table that looks like this that only gives you the category and the tally, that you make sure that over here, okay, so when we have just tallies, it's super important that we then add on to it. And this is how we show our work. So I see here blue, and of course, the other frequency table already tells me it's 13, but if I didn't have that and all I had was this, I'd have to count 5, 10, 11, 12, 13. And then I'm going to write on my paper out to the side what is represented. So that way I can easily show and look at the different numbers without having to count up every single time. So do something like this on my paper, okay? Next type of frequency table you might see, same information that I'm going to show you right now, but this time it's kind of written horizontally. So you see here still the students' favorite colors, but now the category and the tally over here, the titles of the sections are on the side over here. And if you want to know all the categories, it's going horizontally. And then if you want to see the tallies that are associated with each of those categories and each of those responses, you have to look at the bottom part. So blue again is 9. And I would do that same thing. I would take my pen and I would write the numbers inside each box. Okay, so this is just a variety of what the frequency tables could look like. You could get all 3 pieces of information like we started with, or you might only have 2. It could be vertical, it could be a horizontal table. So I just want you to be aware of the different ways it can look. All right, so let's move on to now analyzing, okay? So now that we've number 1, collected all of our data by asking that survey question, what's your favorite color? And we've now organized our data onto a frequency table. We're now ready to analyze. So our tallies are missing here, but we're going to get those in really quickly. Okay, so again, when we analyze, we are looking for patterns, relationships, trying to solve problems. So what are some of the patterns or relationships that we can see in our set of data? Well, I noticed right away that I can tell which color was the favorite among most 4th graders. That was blue, right? Because that's the largest number. That's the highest frequency. That means that blue was chosen 13 times. That's what frequency means. How many times did that happen? So blue was chosen 13 times. And since it's the greatest number compared to all the rest, it's the largest, that means that blue was chosen the most times. Okay, so it was sort of the favorite amongst all the 4th graders. I can also tell which was the least favorite chosen among the grade level, which that one was purple. Okay, so when we're thinking about relationships, we're also looking at how the different pieces of data are related. So for example, I could say that red and black had an equal number of responses, right? Because they're both 9. And I can also say that blue was chosen more frequently than pink, purple, and yellow combined. Okay? So having data also allows us to solve problems. So let's look at a few questions that we can answer with the data. So this first question we have is, how many 4th graders responded to this question? Okay, well, we know that some answered blue, and it was chosen most frequently. We know that some answered yellow and red and pink, purple, black, and so forth. So now that we know what each response is, every response, so each tally represents a kid's response, a 4th grader's response. So if I had 13 altogether, that's 13 4th graders who chose blue, and 3 4th graders who chose yellow, and 9 and 3 and so forth. And so if I'm constantly saying 13 and 3 and 9 and 3, that means that I'm going to be adding all of those together to find out how many 4th graders responded. So if I take all of those and I add them together, we get 49. Okay? But another question you could see might be, how many more students like blue and green than red? And it's super important that these are, word problems like anything else, that we really look for what we are given in our problem, what we know. So we want to know how many more students like blue and green than red. And so I know that this word than means I'm going to compare, right? And so I want to know how many liked these two more than red, right? So it's going to be one of these here. And I'm not going to be saying like, this was chosen more, is greater than or less than, but just understanding that when we say then, that's what we're doing, is we're comparing. But this asks me to check how many more students like blue and green. That and tells me I need to combine blue and green. And blue and green, that's 13 and 10, which means that equals to 23, right? That's my first step. And well, I know red is equal to 9, right? And if I want to know, well, how many more is that than 9? It's 23 than 9, then I gotta subtract, right? So if I do my subtraction, well, I know I can't take 9 away from 3, so I gotta come regroup. Now I have 13 over here. So 13 minus 9 is 4, and 1 minus 0 is 1. So in a problem like this, you see how it was a two-step problem to first figure out what was blue and green together, right? I know blue and I know green, but I didn't know what they were together until I added them. And then I could solve, okay, and to know how many more that is than red, I got to subtract, right? And so my answer is 14. Okay, so now it's time for some independent practice. What you're going to be doing here is you are going to be looking at each task card. You're going to read it. So, for example, this one says Brian asked 12 of his friends how long they spend on homework each night. And then he recorded his results on this table right here, right? And this is just the data. Now, they're asking which frequency table correctly displays the data. What you're going to do is you're going to do whatever work you need to figure out your answer. And it's very important that when you're solving problems, you have to read all of the information given to you. That includes these little labels on each table or chart, because they might give you some different kind of information, right? So you have to pay close attention to both the text and the numbers that are seen on different tables. So what you're going to do is you're going to solve the problem. And after you've solved the problem, you're going to take this red circle here. You're going to click on it and you're going to drag it and you're going to place it on top of A, B, or C to make your selection once you have found your answer. So this is going to be on the next 3 slides. And when you're done, don't forget to go back to Google Classroom and turn in your work. Thanks, boys and girls.